Well, the family's grown up here on the shores of this bay for a lot of generations now. It's the first thing I always looked at every morning when I've been around here. I wake up in the morning, I feel the way I did when I was 19 or 20. Then I try to move. The reality comes home to me. Tide, wind, season, you look out at it, it's never the same twice. Just, there's always something different. If it happens to be flat, calm, you'll look out and there's a reflection from something, or there's a cloud, there's a shadow from a cloud. There's never a time it's not something different. And it always has a special, unique beauty that I see in it. I've found it other places as well. There's so much beauty in the world, but I don't know. This is just the one that I'm so connected with.
Oh, well, all right. First, welcome to the bay here. This is McNabb's Bay, or the Malagash Basin. It's Canada's first oyster farm. Dates back to 1866 when a fellow by the name of Alexander McFarland. He was in the U.S. and he was living in Nova Scotia. He was an international trader and a shipbuilder. And he seen something down in the U.S. He seen them selling oysters. And that was a bit of a shock because the oysters were always the food of the poor people, like lobsters and clams. McFarland knew that Canada was going to be formed and we were going to have a railway. He's also one of the political leaders in the province. So he's going over to England, and while he's in England, he sees how things are there, and he goes off to France, where everybody knows so much about the oysters. So he comes back and he gets something that never happened. He gets a lease of the entire bay from the Nova Scotia government, and then he needed people to work on it. So he went to his family up the road. His mother was a McNabb, and this being McNabb Bay, of course. He went to the McNabbs and he said, look, we're going to farm oysters. Well, we can't do that because the farmers get their fertilizer out of the bay, and you don't own it. Well, yes, I do own it, and this is what we're going to do. Well, McNabb didn't want to take it on himself, so he said, I'd like to involve my best friend, and his best friend was Stephen Purdy, my great-great-grandfather. So they either drank tea around the kitchen table when they were deciding what to do, or I think probably they drank rum, because if you have one drink of rum, a bad idea maybe is not so bad anymore. 2 drinks, it's a better idea, than 3 drinks and you're off and you're doing it.
Well, the family had been involved in oysters right from the very beginning. So historically, I had heard stories about it. And as I was working at all these other things and running in circles, cackling like a rooster with its head half chopped off some of the time, I needed something to relax. I started out with a license to recreationally fish oysters because that was relaxing and I loved oysters. So then I had the opportunity to move that to a commercial license. So I get the commercial oyster license and started doing that just as a hobby.
aboard, guys. Well, we're just moving, going up to the lease now. We're just getting this thing started up. I built this one 25 years ago. It's still growing. Want to fire her up?
All you're doing is you have a sled that slides along the bottom. There's a hose that brings water from the water pump down. Your water comes out on an angle, hits the bottom, causes a turbulence which moves the oysters and the shellfish back to a collection head and onto a flat wire belt chain. And it just brings it up to a surface where you can pick them off as frantically as possible. It's so gentle that it doesn't kill anything that's down there. A soft-bodied worm doesn't kill them. Anything that's too small is going right back over. The other thing that we miss is that a lot of the very small stuff where the belt opening is inch by inch, it's dropping through right at the very bottom. So a lot of that stays there.
It's all good fun. That's all that matters. We're only here for a short while. We best enjoy it. I'm lucky enough to do what I love. Keeps me out here on the bay. Follow your heart, man. Follow your heart. One of you guys want to explain out what you're doing here?
Well, I'm basically sizing the quahogs, sorting them out of the, they come in with the oysters and the quahogs are together, so I take them out and size them into small, medium, and large. And then we also have to clean the oysters. If there's any seed or a dead shell on them like that, that has to be cleaned off. And then we grade them and size them into many different sizes, small, medium, and large standard, and then 4 different sizes of choice. Well, I do just about everything except for the actual harvesting. I do a lot of paperwork, although Rachel is starting to take over that as much as possible. She's leaning towards that. But we do a lot of the cleaning, sorting, selling. Basically, anything that goes on in the plant, Rachel and I do.
And this is Rachel, who's going to be taking the business over. Daughter number 2.
It's very fulfilling feeling that she's going to be taking over and working with us. I really enjoy working with Rachel. I guess our personalities, click together, and I just enjoy working with her. She's pleasant and fun to work with.
She's a maniac to work. I wish she'd slow down a little bit. But anyway, that's the way it is, I guess. Right? You won't listen to good advice from Dad.
Well, my people came in here in 1783. And ever since, on the family farm, or in business, whatever they're in, there's always been 3 generations. And they always stood together. And my greatest joy is when there's myself and when Rachel, or any of my children, and their children, when we're all together doing something.
Would you like to sit down at the picnic table?
Yeah, I can eat the...
If you take an oyster out, you open an oyster up, you share it with somebody. If you're lucky, maybe you have a sip of beer or a little sip of wine or something along with it. And it's an experience, and it's a sharing of something in common. The oyster, if I had my way, I would never charge for an oyster, because in the native culture, food is something you share, and an oyster was something that was special in the culture and something to be shared at a party or a gathering or a get-together. But being practical, and thank goodness I have a wife that's a lot more practical than me, and a daughter that's more practical than I am. They're able to do it in such a way that I make money and they can keep me going doing the silly things.
Sometimes he's hard to keep in line. But that's just, I think that's a man thing. I love looking out on it every morning, and I especially like the evenings to look out and see the sunsets over the bay. It's just beautiful. It turns the whole bay either a bright orange or reddish. It's gorgeous. I hope that the bay will always stay the way it is, and that our generations to come will still enjoy a life on the bay.
Well, we have had sea level rise since I can remember. We've had a lot of erosion. The point that runs out from Clark's Point there, when I was a kid, there was 2 islands out there. They're gone. When I was 12 years old, say they would have been there, and they're gone now. We have things changing in the bay there that we can do nothing about. Invasive species have come in, like green crab, which has decimated a lot of the native species. It's wiping out the eel or the seagrass, eelgrass bed. My own part in it is to, when I'm through, is to make sure that what I've done in the bay hasn't harmed it. It's made it, if anything, better rather than worse. So try very, very hard to make sure that everything follows the cycles as they should out there. You know, I think mankind has really messed up his idea of stewardship over the environment, and I think we really all, as a people of the world, need to look at what we're doing and make some drastic changes. People say, well, what can I do? I'm just one person. But if every one person does a little bit, it'll make a big change. If you have a dream, if there's something you want to do, don't be afraid to do it. Because life is really short. There's nothing wrong with saying I failed at something. But if you didn't try it, you never know. If you decide you're going to be happy, you got a lot better chance. Whether you have a positive outlook on stuff, certainly makes it quite a lot better than if you say, well, you know, Monday, jeez, Monday suck. Well, Monday it will suck if you start out that way. But you say, oh gee, this is Monday, this is going to be one great week. This is just the first day. Usually go pretty good. Cool. All right. Thanks, Clyde.
Thank you.